Hello everyone. Today we are going to try and build a game for your iPhone. So when I say a game, it does not include a lot of graphical elements. We are not going to build a first person shooter or it won't be even as rich as a Flappy Bird. But it will have some game elements where we'll build the right level of challenge, the right level of frustration, the thrill of advancing different stages, etc. But the game itself is going to be really simple and it will mostly rely on everything we have learned till now. Even if you haven't been following the previous tutorials, you should be able to follow this and catch on pretty fast. Let's start with creating a new Xcode project. Single view. I'm going to call this stop number. That's the name of the game we are building, and I'll tell you in a second why we are calling it that. Everything else is selected right. Next, and I'm going to save it. It's the default screen, as you know, and here is the main storyboard. I'm going to make some space here, make this view controller the size of a 4-inch so that we have more space. All right. So what's this game about? This game is about testing a reaction time. We'll have a counter that increments really fast, and we will ask the user to stop when it reaches a certain number or very close to that number. And that way, this is a game I often follow when I'm at a gas station. I'm filling the fuel and I try to stop the counter at like a whole number, at like exactly 11 gallons or exactly 12 gallons. So this game is similar to that. For that, let me get some elements on the screen. The first one is a label, and for this label, I'm going to use this label to keep track of the highest level. Right, so to begin with, it's 1, and then I'm going to have ender label, which is going to hold the current level. So level 1. So what's the difference between the highest level and level 1? Highest level is your the leaderboard. It will, whenever you reach a highest level, it will record that and it will remain in the memory forever. So in the arcade game, when you see the highest scores from all the previous players who have ever played that arcade game, that's what this first label is, and the second label is just your current score in that game. And I need a third label. This is going to be the counter. I need it to be nice and big. Let me increase the font size pretty significantly. Some more. All right, so 35. That's nice and big. Now, these three are the primary information that the game is displaying. This is going to be the counter. Let me start the counter at 0. Center aligned, all of this, center aligned, center aligned. And here we use the nice little stack that we learned about. So everything is position plays pretty automatic for you. Let me give it some space here. So that should be good. I'm going to increase this font size a little bit because this is the main element of the game. And highest level, I'm going to decrease the font size a bit. Yep, so that should be good. Now what do we need? We need a button that's going to stop the counter. So this counter is going to rapidly increase and I'm going to hit this button. Again, I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm going to label this stop. When this button is pressed, this counter needs to stop, and at whatever number it stops, if it's close to our target, then we would have a win, else we would have a lose. We need one more button. This is to restart the game. So play again. I'm going to call it that. There you go. And I need ender label for instruction, and I'm going to tell the user center stop at 90 or above. So what we'll do is we'll increment this counter rapidly from 0 to 100, and we are asking the user to stop at 90 or above. Let's stack these two. Oops, it's nice. Give it some breathing room. Alright, so we have these three elements. I'm going to make sure that it's horizontal in container and it's at a fixed height from the top. Similarly, this button, horizontal in the container, fixed height from the previous element. And then this stack, I'm going to do the same, horizontal in container and fixed height from the top. Alright, so visually our game is ready. These are the only elements we need. Again, we rapidly increase this counter from 0 to 100. When someone hits stop, this counter will stop. If it's at 90 or above, we'll have a winner, and they will proceed to the next level. If not, they lose, and we'll decide what we want to do when the user is going to lose. Let's open up our editor. All right, make some space. I'm going to do a drag and drop. Let me call this label highest level. Make some space. Place this here. That's going to be label level. Connect. This is going to be label counter. And for these two, we need functions to decide what's going to happen when it's pressed. So I'm going to do call this. First, we have to change this to an action, and this is button stop pressed. Connect. So this function is called whenever someone presses that button. Whenever someone presses this button, it will create a function called button reset pressed. All right. So everything is wired up. Now all we need to do is write some logic to increment the counter, and then when the button is pressed, to stop the counter, and some more game elements. So how are you going to increment the counter? That is where I introduce the concept of NS timer. To save on time, I have some notes here. Let's see, NS timer, start the timer. I'm going to bring in this code and explain what that is. So as soon as okay, we need not see our game anymore, so let me close this, and I'm going to do this, make some space. All right. Okay, so what we have over here is a NS timer. Um, and I'm going to say make that a global function. Variable timer equals NS timer. Alright, so I initialize that timer, and over here I'm saying that the timer, you can start a timer by saying nstimer.scheduleTimer with interval, and you can specify the interval here. So the lower this number, the faster the counter is going to go. So I'm going to start at 0.01 and target self selector. This function ticktock is the function that is going to be called every time this timer is ticking, right? So this is, it ticks at 1 second. We want it to tick at 1/10 of a second, and this function is going to be called. So once that is done, I need to actually implement the function called ticktock. Function ticktock. And in this function, so every time this function is going to be called when the counter is so what did we decide? We decided that we want the counter to be incremented. So for that, let me create some more global variables. This variable is going to hold the count at any given point of time. Variable level is going to hold the level, and variable highest level is going to hold that. So when this happens, we need first the count to increment. Once the count is incremented, we want the label counter dot text to be count. It's going to give an error because it's not going to like the conversion. This is an integer. We are assigning it to a string. So what do? We can probably typecast it into string like this, and the error is gone. So let's see. So what did we do? As soon as the program loads, it's going to start a timer at this particular interval. It's going to call this, repeatedly call this function. Let's execute it. Building, build succeeded. That's the program loading. There you go. So you can see what you have done is implemented a timer and constantly increasing this timer, right? And you're increasing it at 1/10 of a second, and you get this nice thing going up. What we want to do two things here. First, when someone clicks stop, I need to stop the counter. And second, the game goes from 0 to 100, and we're asking them to stop between 90 and 100. So when it reaches 100, I want it to be reset back. So these are the two things I want to do now. And also, if they win, there needs to be some indication that they did win. And if not, some other indicator. I'm going to get out of this. All right. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called counter speed, and I'm going to make that a smaller value than 1 second. And here, instead of using hard coding this value, I'm going to say counter speed, right? So now this is going to increment at that particular speed. And why we'll do that is because later in the code, if we want to increase the speed or decrease the speed, we just need to change this variable and call this. So that's how we'll address that here. So this function is being called. We said that we want to increment we want to increment the counter, right? What we want to do is, if I'm going to say if the count is greater than or equal to 90, right? That's our whole game. And count is less than or equal to 100. So that's the number that we want to hit. Then do something else. Do something else. So if it is within our winning thing, what do we want to do? We want to increase the level. That's the first thing we'll do. Next is I'm going to say the label level dot text equals level. We saw that this is how we insert a variable in this string, right? So you have incremented the level and you have now changed the text and in the label as well for indication. Since we have a winner, I'm going to say label dot text color equals UI color dot green color. So what's that going to do? It's going to increment the level and mark it green so that there's some visual indicator that that the person won. We are also going to make the whole counter do the same thing. UI color dot green color. So there you go. When we have a winner, we are incrementing the level, giving some visual indication that we do have a winner. Now what I'm going to do is I want to, once the user has advanced to the next level, I want it to be more challenging. I want the counter speed, the variable that we created, to actually be faster. So how do you make this timer faster is by decreasing this variable, right? It's just saying that remember we started with 1 second, then we said we wanted to be faster, then we did 1/10 of a second, which is 0.0, which is 0.1, and here we said, it's still slow, I'm going to start at 0.04. Now every time a level is incremented, I want the speed to decrease by 20%. You do that by doing this little math here, and the counter speed is every time you win, this variable is going to decrease, which means that the timer speed is going to increase. It'll make it more challenging, right? So, so this is great. I mean, in your current game, now you have some indication whether you have a winner or not. But what happens if the number is not between this and this, right? So we'll do uh, something different here, right? What should happen? First, I'm going to make this extremely challenging for the user. It's going to be a frustrating game. I'm going to make the level 1. So let's say you are at level 6 and you're going for level 7. Uh, you failed. I'm going to drop you all the way back to 1. You could do a different model here and you could just decrement them one level, or you could keep them at the same level. Whatever you want to do, it's your game. But in my evil version of the game, I'm going to bring them all the way back to 1. The text color here is going to be red color for both. Red color. You have changed the label, so that is good. All right, and then we bring the counter speed back to the original counter speed. So this is what we want to do if the counter doesn't stop there. So let's see what else. Is there anything else that we need to accomplish here? Yes, there is one other thing. We said that if the counter reaches 100, we need to reset that back to 0. So let's see how we can do that. So this is the function talk. Okay, so we wrote this whole piece of code in our timer function, which is not right. I'm going to move that to stop button is pressed, right? Because that's where we want to have all this. When the stop button is pressed, what do we do? In the counter itself, you're incrementing the counter, but and I need only one more condition here. If count is greater than 100, I need to make count equal to 0. All right, let's see. No errors in the compiler. Everything looks good. Okay, so this should do what it's supposed to do. One other thing, how do you restart the game? That is by pressing this button, right? So when you press this button, the play again button, what needs to happen? We can think ahead. I want to stop the timer if it's running, invalidate. And that's another thing that we need to do here too. When stop is pressed, nothing is going to happen if we don't stop the timer. So timer invalidate. And I'm going to do timer invalidate over here. I'm basically here, I'm resetting all the variables. So the count is going to be 0. The timer needs to restart. So the timer is restarting, and then all the label that we have changed the color, which is the counter dot text color equals UI color dot black color, and the levels as well. Okay, so that's what needs to happen. So let's see how far we have gotten. I'm going to change this to a iPhone 5S simulator. Create and build succeeded. All right, so the counter is incrementing. So there you go. Once it reaches 100, it's going to reset back. Now let's try to play the game. I want to stop and it's about 90, 100. There you go. That's we have a winner. The level got incremented and I can play again. And it remembers the level and let me try to get it again. Level 3. Play again. Whoops, I lost. Bumped me back to level 1 as we wanted it, and it's indication that it's red. Something is going bad. Now I have to start all over again, right? So there you go. Our game is working. What you would notice is every time you win, it's going to be more challenging because we are incrementing the speed of the counter, right? So you might not notice because the change is only 20%, but by the time you reach a few levels higher, it's going to be extremely challenging. So let's make sure okay, so what's not happening in the game? What's remaining? You can see the highest level. That's never incrementing because we never wrote any code to do anything with the highest level. We are going to change that. And let's see. If you press and when you press stop, that is this function. And if the counter, if you have a winner, we have to check here whether you beat your highest level. And that is if level is greater than highest level, right? That's how you know that you beat your highest level. What needs to happen? So I'm going to swap highest level to level, not swap, just assign the highest level to the current level, right? So if you're at 3, your highest level is 3. And then I'm going to change the label of the highest level, dot text equals highest level, highest level. So now you have the highest level indicated. It would be nice to do the same thing with the text color that we did with everything else. UI color green, right? Since we are doing green over here, you have to remember to reset it back to black. There you go. That will take care of the UI color. Um, so that's it. I think once we have the highest level, we have now enough code to make sure that the highest levels are hit. Let's see if it works. Bring up our game. Build succeeded. All right. So now I'm going to make a serious attempt at playing this. Okay, I win. I win. You can see the highest level is incrementing. Whoops. I fell down to level 1. But that is okay because the highest level stays. So now I know that in this game I have reached the highest level of 3. right? I'm going to try and beat that. Now that becomes my target. Alright. There. Play again. There. Play again. It's getting a slightly tad bit more faster every time, and it's more difficult now. I beat my last highest level, and now it's extremely difficult. Oh, level 5, and whoops, missed it by 1 point and level 1, but the highest level stays. So now this is sticky. But what's going to happen is, as soon as we exit the game, and when we come back, uh, it's going to not remember the highest level, right? It's going to reset it back because we are not persisting anything in memory. That's obviously not what we want. We want it to remember. So what should we be doing? We should use NSDefaults to persist that number in memory. How do you do that? We have learned this from the previous tutorials. Should be pretty straightforward for us. Once you hit the highest level, what you do is you store that in memory. Use ns, use the defaults dot set standard user defaults dot set value, and what are the value you are storing? That's the highest level variable, and it's asking you for a key. You can say memory mem highest, right? That's the string against which you're storing. Now every time you have a highest level, you are storing it in memory. What do you need to do? Is now when the program loads, you just need to get it back. So how do you get it back? That's the first thing you do. You say, first I'm going to check if it exists in memory. So if ns user defaults dot standard defaults dot value for key, and our key is mem highest, if this exists, which means it's not nil, then I want to do something. I want to just get that and assign it to the variable. So I'm going to say highest level equals same thing n as user defaults dot standard defaults dot I want it as an I want it back as an integer. So there's a handy function called integer for value. Highest. You just have to make sure all those strings match properly, because it's not going to give you an error. It's just not going to find it and not assign it to your variable, and then you'll have to debug and find out what's happening. So your variable is set. Just make sure that the text is also set. Highest level, and you can say highest level. So there you go. So now we have wrote the code to persist it in memory and get it back. Let's see if it works. Let's bring up our game. It succeeded. Okay, I'm going to, as you saw, we had highest level 5. It did not stick because at that time we were not saving it in memory. Let's play this game. Okay, play again. Alright, so I lost, but my highest level is 2. Let me stop this application. Right, so now the app is not running. Let me come back. Let me see if it remembers. There you go. The highest level is 2. You can see there's a typo here, and we're going to fix that, but Yep, let me try to beat my highest score. Uh, Wrong button. Level 2. Alright, so, but yeah, but it'll happen. You saw me go up to highest level 5. So, there you go. Now we are persisting it in memory and bringing it back. Let's fix that typo here. Highest level. The typo gave us a good indication also that it went into this piece of code. It got it back from memory. Now let's say it would be nice if you're on a phone and if you want the phone to vibrate when you have a win. You do that by doing this. You have to import something called audio toolkit, audio toolbox. So this is importing Ender a library here so that you can use functions and all the wonderful things from it. And when we have a winner, we want to use it. So how do you use it? So how do you have a winner? This is your if condition to find a winner. And I'm going to say audio services play alert sound. So you're playing the alert sound, right? Vibration is bundled in with all the audio services. And you want what type of sound? You want system sound ID, but a specific type. You are looking for K system sound ID vibrate. So there you go. So this piece of code, when we have a winner, it's going to vibrate the phone. You can use that, whenever you want your phone to vibrate, you use this nifty little piece of code and it will do that for you. Let's see what else is remaining in our code. I think we have everything. Now we have a nice little game going and it's a lot of fun playing it. I have tried it. My highest level is 5. I hope you can do it for a longer time. I want to actually show you one more thing in this tutorial, but let's first quickly go back, try to play it one more time. Let's see. Okay, play again. Highest level 3. All right, highest level 3. So you saw that this highest level is sticky. It's, whenever you exit the app now, whenever you come back to this score is always going to remain, right? That's exactly how you want it to be. Uh, if it's an arcade game and people are playing it, multiple people are playing it, you want that highest level to be sticky. But what if you wanted some override function, some secret way to reset this number, back to 1, or which would essentially restore the state to when the app was first installed? What if you built in that secret function? That would be pretty nice. So how you do that is using gestures, right? And let's think of functionality that would do that. You can see this play again, right, button. We keep using it. What if I pressed it for a long time and then have it reset the counter? So no one would immediately know it unless someone told them that. But if you are the admin and you want this as an Easter egg or whatever it is, or for yourself, if you're doing this for personal thing, once you reach level 5, it's going to be extremely difficult to beat that level. So you want some way to just reset the game, right? So what we're attempting to do now is when this play again button is pressed for an extended period of time, like a long press, this should reset. So let's try to build that code. For that, you are going to do something here. When we load the game, when we load the app, we need something called gestures. So long press equal UI long press gesture recognizer. I'm bringing this recognizer in, and then target, and then I need a function. So here I'm going to say self, and in the action I'm going to make this action, this piece of code, and then I need the control to state how long we um, you know want it to be pressed. So I'm going to take an extremely long time because it's not a functionality in a regular game flow. And then button. Uh, so I want to add this gesture to our button, but to make that, I don't have an outlet for the reset button. I only had action, but not an outlet. So we are going to fix that. Bring up my assistant editor here. Recent files, main storyboard, outlet. Oh, yeah, we need outlet. Button, reset. Okay, so now we have an outlet for that button. And let me close this out and go back to my code. Okay, so where were we? Here. So now I can reference my button, and there's a thing called add gesture recognizer, and I'm going to add the recognizer that we just created. Alright, so now what this piece of code is saying is we create a gesture recognizer, added it to the button, gave it a duration, which is 4 seconds. So if you press the button for 4 seconds, this is going to trigger. And now we need to write the corresponding function to do that. And let me go back to the bottom here. I'm going to add that function here. I'm going to bring that in from my notes. And that piece of function is this. I'll explain this in a second. Okay, so this is the function that gets called when you press the long button. So it's the action that you asked it to call over here, right? And it's calling this function. And in this function, what you want to do is uh, you can recognize the state when it starts and when it ends, so that you can write any piece of code in wherever you want it. If you didn't do this if condition to recognize the state, whether it's ended or began, this function is going to be called 2 times because the gesture itself doesn't distinguish. It's a continuous call. So when the button is pressed, when you take the finger off, every time this is going to be executed. So you want some if condition so that only when you take your hands off or when you put your hands on it, uh, something needs to happen. So this ended state, this is when you have taken your hands off. This piece is going to fire. We don't want it to do anything. That's why we're just printing it to the console. And this gesture is when it began, when you put your uh, finger on that button and kept it pressed for 4 seconds, right, a long press was detected. What you want to do is reset the function. So let's see, what's the error over here? Highest level. Oh, highest level. Okay, I'm going to see what's going on. Highest level S1, and then label highest level dot text is again highest level, and you're resetting it to 1. And what does it not like? Use of unresolved. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, it's just because ours is a different case. And then you also want to remember you have to reset uh, the memory, whatever you had stored in memory, to you have to reset that. Else, in the memory, it's not going to change. So there you go. So now you have a secret function that only you know about on how to reset the game. So let's try that. All right, I'm going to. Oh, didn't work. Again. All right, I'm going to give it a serious shot now. Level 2, level 3, level 4. Oops, no. So level 4. So you can see over here. Now let's see for long. So if you click this, normally you're playing the game. You saw that. Now let's try our long press. All right, I'm pressing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there you go. You can see the long press was detected, and we reset our counter. So that's a nifty way to add in a secret function to your game. And now you you don't want to be stuck at level 6 and never get to beat that, or whatever it is, or maybe share the secret with your friend. But there's something, a small little secret that you added to the game. There you go. So I hope you can build this game on your end. I'll share the source code as well, and hope you have as much fun developing it and playing it as I did. All right, that's all for today. Take care.